Have you ever heard of the Haitian Revolution? No? Don't worry, a lot of people haven't. It's like that one amazing song on an album that never becomes a single. You know, the deep cut. But this story is way more important than a pop song. It's the story of the only successful slave rebellion in history. Think about that for a second. The only one. It happened in a place called Saint-Domingue, which we now know as Haiti. This wasn't just a small fight. It was a full-blown, world-changing revolution that created the first ever Black Republic. It's a story about people who were told they were property, standing up and saying, actually no, we're not, and they meant it. So, what was life like in Saint-Domingue before all this kicked off? In a word, brutal. This French colony was the richest in the world, the Pearl of the Antilles. But that wealth was built on the backs of over 500,000 enslaved Africans. They were forced to work on sugar and coffee plantations under the most horrific conditions imaginable. We're talking non-stop labor, terrible living quarters, and extreme violence. The system was designed to crush their spirits, to make them forget they were human. It was a place where the air was thick with the smell of sugar and the sound of suffering. It was a powder keg just waiting for a spark. That spark came from, of all places, France. The French Revolution was happening, and its big ideas, liberty, equality, fraternity, were echoing across the ocean. The white colonists in Saint-Domingue heard liberty and thought, great, more freedom for us from France. But the enslaved people heard it and thought, wait a minute, does that apply to us too? Spoiler alert, the French didn't exactly mean for it to. But you can't just put an idea like freedom for all out into the world and then try to put a "some restrictions may apply" sticker on it. The ideas were out, and they were powerful. The revolution officially began in August 1791. It wasn't a debate in a fancy hall. It was a fiery, organized uprising. It started with a voodoo ceremony led by a priest named Duddy Boukman. He gathered enslaved people from nearby plantations and gave them a powerful message of unity and rebellion. They weren't just fighting for better conditions, they were fighting for their very humanity. They set fire to the plantations, the symbols of their oppression, and fought back against their enslavers with everything they had. It was a declaration of war against a system that had dehumanized them for centuries. The world was about to see what happens when the oppressed decide they've had enough. Now, every great movement needs a great leader, right? The Haitian Revolution had one of the most brilliant military minds you've probably never learned about in school, Toussaint Louverture. This man was incredible. He was born into slavery, taught himself to read and write, and eventually gained his freedom. When the revolution exploded, he didn't just join the fight, he rose to lead it. He was a master strategist, a political genius who knew how to play the game. He could outsmart and outmaneuver the French, the Spanish, and the British, all of whom had their eyes on this very valuable piece of land. Toussaint was like a chess grandmaster playing on a board where the pieces were armies and empires. He organized the formerly enslaved people into a disciplined and effective fighting force. These weren't just angry mobs, this was an army. He trained them, gave them a structure, and inspired them with a vision of a new society where they could be free. He famously said, "I was born a slave, but nature gave me the soul of a free man." This wasn't just a catchy phrase, it was his entire philosophy. He was fighting not just to end slavery, but to build a nation from its ashes, which is a much, much harder job. His leadership was so effective that he basically took control of the entire colony. He created a constitution, outlawed slavery for good, and started rebuilding the economy. He even made himself Governor General for life. Now that might sound a little dictatorial, and yeah, it's complicated, but you have to understand the pressure he was under. He was surrounded by enemies. Napoleon Bonaparte, the big boss over in France, was not a fan. Napoleon wanted Saint-Domingue back, and he especially wanted slavery back. It was too profitable to let go. So a huge clash was inevitable. So Napoleon sent a massive army, led by his own brother-in-law, Charles Leclerc, to shut Toussaint down. It was one of the largest forces France had ever sent overseas. Their mission was clear: restore French authority and bring back slavery. Toussaint fought back fiercely, using guerrilla tactics and his army's knowledge of the terrain. But in the end, he was tricked. The French promised him a peaceful retirement if he surrendered. He agreed, but it was a trap. They captured him and shipped him off to a freezing prison in the French mountains, where he died in 1803. They thought by removing the leader, the revolution would die. They were wrong. When we think of revolutions, we usually think of the American or French ones. You know, guys in wigs writing declarations and complaining about taxes. The Haitian Revolution was different. Fundamentally different. The American Revolution was about colonists wanting independence from a king. They were fighting for their rights as citizens. But here's the thing: many of those same American revolutionaries owned slaves. They were fighting for their own freedom while denying it to others. It's a bit like complaining about the Wi-Fi password being too long while you have someone locked in the basement. The hypocrisy is just, wow. The Haitian Revolution, on the other hand, was about the very definition of humanity. The people fighting weren't colonists, they were the property. They weren't fighting for representation, they were fighting for their lives and the right to be considered human beings. This makes it the most radical revolution of its time. While the French were debating the rights of man, the Haitians were actually putting it into practice for everyone, regardless of skin color. They took the ideals that the Europeans were talking about and showed them what it looked like when you actually meant it. It was a complete upending of the social order. The struggle itself was unbelievably difficult. The Haitian forces were made up of people who had been brutalized their whole lives, fighting against the most powerful armies in the world. They faced the French, the Spanish, and the British. They had to deal with betrayals, internal conflicts, and the constant threat of being re-enslaved. Their greatest ally, funnily enough, was the land itself. Yellow fever, a disease that the European soldiers had no immunity to, wiped out thousands of them. The Haitian fighters, who had grown up in the environment, were more resistant. It was as if the island itself was fighting for its own freedom. After Toussaint was captured, his general, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, took over. Dessalines was a much more ruthless leader. He saw that there could be no compromise with the French. He continued the fight with a renewed ferocity, and in 1804, he declared victory. He tore the white part out of the French tricolor flag, creating the new Haitian flag of blue and red. On January 1st, 1804, he proclaimed the independent nation of Haiti. It was a stunning achievement. A nation of former slaves had defeated a global superpower and created the world's first ever free black republic. This sent shockwaves across the entire world. So Haiti won. They were free. Happy ending, right? Well, not exactly. Winning the war was one thing, winning the peace was another. The world was not ready to accept a free black nation. Slave-owning countries like the United States were terrified. The existence of Haiti was a threat to their entire economic system. It was proof that enslaved people could not only fight back, but win. So instead of trading with Haiti and helping it grow, they isolated it. They put it in a global timeout, hoping it would fail. It was like winning the World Cup, but then every other country refuses to play with you ever again. This isolation had devastating consequences, but the biggest blow came from France. In 1825, France came back, not with soldiers, but with warships and a demand. They said Haiti had to pay them reparations. Yes, you heard that right. The former slaves had to pay their former masters for the property they had lost. And that property was themselves. It was an insane, extortionate demand. To avoid another war, Haiti agreed to pay 150 million francs, a massive sum that would be worth billions today. This debt crippled Haiti's economy for over a century, a burden it's still recovering from. The Haitian Revolution's impact goes far beyond Haiti's borders. It was a beacon of hope for enslaved people everywhere. It inspired rebellions and resistance movements throughout the Americas. It forced the world to confront the hypocrisy of slavery in an age of liberty. It proved that the ideas of freedom and equality were not just for white Europeans. It redrew the map of the world, not just politically, but morally. The revolution was a key factor in Napoleon's decision to sell the Louisiana Territory to the United States, which doubled the size of the country. So, in a way, America owes a big thank you to the Haitian rebels. So why is this story still so important today? Because it challenges everything we think we know about history, power, and freedom. It's a story of the ultimate underdogs achieving the impossible. It reminds us that history is often written by the victors, which is why this incredible story has been sidelined for so long. The Haitian Revolution is a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. It shows that no matter how oppressive a system is, the desire for freedom can never be completely extinguished. It's a story we should all know, a story that deserves its place in the spotlight, not just as a deep cut, but as the headline act.